Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for your Saturday night delight. It's time for geek-span, your geek culture 411. And some of you may have noticed that Skip and Tosh is not with me today. My partner in crime is not feeling so well, so I got a replacement. I got a ringer in here to replace him this week. How you doing, Doc?
I'm great, man. Let's do this.
So you ready to talk about some comic industry news?
Absolutely.
All right, you give and I'll receive the first one.
All right. So, Captain Marvel is currently murdering clones of her Avengers teammates on the way to Captain Marvel 150. The cover art reveals Carol wielding weapons from Tony, Cap, and Thor. What other trophies should Carol Danvers collect?
Oh man, why would you just stop at those? You know, she only destroyed Tony, Cap, and Thor so far, man. She should have Doctor Strange's balls, you know, on the amulet thing that he has. She should probably beat up Conan and steal his sword. What other characters can she emasculate? This is so stupid, you know. Oh, technically they're clones, so she didn't actually kill Cap and Tony and Thor, and I believe she killed Black Panther and She-Hulk as well, but they're clones. They're supposed to be the exact same power sets of the original characters. This is such a lame way to show that Captain Marvel is the most powerful character in the Marvel Universe. They're trying so hard to make this character work. They're trying so hard to make Captain Marvel the go-to character, the most powerful Avenger, you know, in all of Marvel. People ain't buying it. You know, it's just she's not that powerful. She certainly isn't popular enough to be defeating all these characters. It's a lame, gimmickry marketing ploy. I don't buy it, but she should definitely, you know, have Doctor Strange's nuts on a necklace. She should, you know, beat up Conan's, take a sword. Who else do you think she should? Who else's weapon or powers do you think she should steal so they can get her over at Marvel Comics, Doc?
Well, I think that by the time she's done, if you remember the original Future Imperfect, the Maestro's trophy room where he had a little bit of everything. She needs to get Wolverine's skeleton, or at least X-23's claws, Cyclops' visor. She needs to get Hawkeye's bow and arrow. She needs to get
Kate Bishop already took everything from Hawkeye, including
she can get 2 bows and arrows because when he kills Kate too, because sword or the Black Knight's sword and horse, and maybe even his armor. You know, go big or go home. Go everything from A-list all the way down to Z-list. And why stop at the Avengers when you can get Spider-Man's web shooters, the Fantastic Four's Ultimate Nullifier, and Fantasticar, some rocks from the Thing? You know, go big all the way down to the Z-list.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're more excited about Carol Danvers' current murder spree, you know, getting on her way to Captain Marvel 150. I think it's pretty lame, but, you know, I guess the readers will decide, Doc.
Yep, treat her like the villain she's been for the last 8 years.
True that. All right, Doc. Like many recent releases, Bloodshot bombed at the movie theater. Due to the current crisis, many theaters are closing their doors to the public. In response, Sony is making Bloodshot available for home streaming weeks after release. Is this a good strategy for the film industry, given the current moment we're in?
I think it's their only choice on how to survive. They can't just push things off indefinitely. And this is a change that a lot of, I guess, moviegoers have kind of been asking for a long time, you know, with theaters constantly either full or, you know, starting at weird times. Instead of, you know, we live in an on-demand world, and movie start time should be on demand for the people that don't mind. Now, there is still, you know, the great theater going experience sometimes, but it's worth a shot for some of these movies that are much more fringe. You know, Hollywood in the last few years has gone to, you know, only tent poles. There's no more of the smaller release stuff. And this may be a good way to get Hollywood back into making mid-budget stuff that's not going to do, they're not aiming for $1 billion on it, but something that could earn them a respectable, 300 million.
I'm with you, man. I like what Netflix originally started doing, but they have gone for quantity over quality, full force. And I do not like Netflix like being the home of the mid-budget movie right now, because everything there sucks. Their production qualities have just tanked as they just try to flood the market with crap. So having a viable alternative for some of these production companies to get these movies made, but then also get and find an audience. Not everybody wants to spend, $15 on a Bloodshot movie here, as we saw with Pixar, onwards. It'll be interesting to see what Sony does, because I know Disney just released Onwards in on demand, but you can't rent it. You can only buy it right now, which I think was a big mistake. Not a lot of people want to pay $20 for the digital, version of the movie. I think more people will be much happier with a $5 or $6 option where they can watch it for a 24-hour period. But I do agree with you. This is part of the future. I don't think it'll be the future for movies like Avengers or Wonder Woman 1984, but a movie like Bloodshot, medium-sized budget, high a big risk reward or a smaller risk reward type of thing. They went for something that's comic book based, but not a big property everyone knows. Maybe it hits big, but maybe it doesn't. This is another way to mitigate some of that risk, and I do see this maybe being one of the byproducts of everything that's happening right now is maybe more movies making it into video on demand much sooner.
Agreed. After a string of losses, IDW Publishing reported $100,000 in profit in Q1 2020. Is this a reason to celebrate?
Well, I mean, they shouldn't be unhappy they finally turned a profit for the first time in quite a few years, but they're sitting, IDW Media is sitting on about like $200 million in debt. So this is literally the tiniest drop in an enormous bucket. So should they be happy? Yes, they finally turn a profit in one of their divisions. And it's the publishing division, which is obviously houses the comic books, and I believe their board games division as well. Is it reason to celebrate? Absolutely not, because they have a lot of issues. It seems like Lock and Key has been a hit at Netflix, but IDW Media needs a lot more wins before they can really start celebrating with an eye towards maybe survival in the long term. This doesn't change any of that. $100,000 in profits just for the publishing. They still recorded losses in their other divisions, so it still doesn't look good for IDW, but at least they've proven that they can turn a profit. Of course, with everything going on right now, that's not going to help.
Yeah, I look at it this way, like, it may not be bucketing water out of the Titanic, but it's definitely eyedroppering water out of a significantly smaller boat. You got one good quarter after many, many years of losses. Your job is to not lose money. So congratulations, you barely did your job. And that's assuming that I have a sneaky suspicion that 1 quarter of growth is going to be offset this coming quarter with the current crisis going on.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be a bloodbath. I shudder to think with what we're going to lose in the very short term as far as retailers and publishers. I can't see them all surviving, and IDW's got to be on the chopping block.
Absolutely.
All right, Doc. Scott Snyder recently went to Twitter and clarified, I know some folks were asking whether recent changes at DC affected DC death metal at all. The answer is yes. It became bigger in all ways. You buying what Snyder is selling?
Yes. If for no other reason than Dan Didio being gone means that they weren't overlooking the first event in order to promote the second event that's coming with their 5G, G5, airplane, whatever, event that's coming up, so they can actually focus on the event that's coming and maybe work it out better so that they match up better. I know that Perch talked about how there was a gap between them. The lineup didn't seem to be like it was the publishing line was matching up for timeline wise. And this may prove to be by extending and growing death metal, they may be finding a way to bridge that gap and make the transition from event 1 to event 2 much more seamless. And I think that that's the idea. You don't want to, any new readers you may pull in or drag in with death metal is, and especially after the way that Dark Knight's metal, for however it ended, at least the one shots and the individual issues with things like Dawnbreaker and the Batman Who Laughs, those, as a non-DC reader, those were the only things out of that event that I bought. So if you end up with more like the giant T-Rex Batman and some of the other weird Batmen that we're going to get out of this event, you might get more interest from people like me.
Yeah, it's a great idea because DC Comics has a few guaranteed sellers as far as creative teams. You got Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo. You've got Jeff Johns, Gary Franks. And people might not like to admit it, but Tom King, Clayman. Those are some of those creative teams that really drive interest. There's going to be a lot of interest in death metal. There's no reason to waste that. It felt like there was going to be a disconnect between death metal and Generation 5 because Dan Didio, had a different vision for the future of DC Comics. And Scott Snyder had said death metal is kind of like my swan song on capes. I'm going to step away and do some creator-owned stuff, some horror stuff. It sounds like he's more involved right now, and it feels like death metal and 5G are going to be very much more connected. So it needed to get bigger. Hopefully, we do get more of those one shots. Those, I'm with you. The Red Death, Dawnbreaker. Not all of them were great, but there are some really cool stories in there that I think a lot of people enjoyed. And those weren't even Scott Snyder stories. Those were other creators working within the confines of what he was doing in Dark Knight's Metal, and it was really. It was really prosperous. It was a really a very popular event series. There's no reason to downsize this if you don't need to. Make it bigger. Make the consequences bigger. Tie in death metal into Generation 5. If people love this event, maybe they'll jump over to the next one. So I think this is a great idea. It's smart business. DC Comics has a new future. Dan Didio is gone, and it's time for people like Scott Snyder to pave the way and get DC Comics moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and with giving Scott a little more room to grow his event, you may give him the opportunity to come back and stick around for a little longer. He may change his mind about stepping away from capes.
Absolutely.
So, Wes, X-Men group editor Jordan White recently stated, "We've been cooking a new series of specials that start after X of Swords is over that everyone involved is really excited about. You ready to get hyped for the event of X of Swords?"
Well, I feel like they might be counting their chickens before they hatch here. What if X of Swords is a dud? What if people aren't enjoying this and they need to retool Dawn of X? Because I'm enjoying parts of Dawn of X, but I'm not going to say that it's a wholesale win for DC or for Marvel Comics. I think X-Men's been good. X-Force has been pretty darn good. Wolverine seems like it's not going to have any issues. Some of these miniseries are cool, but Excalibur's trash. I don't like. I'm not reading Marauders because it's too stupid for me. New Mutants, the tone was all over the place. I already dropped that series, even though people are saying it's back on track. I'm already off the train, baby. So to this idea that they're already planning another event after 10 of Swords hasn't even succeeded yet. I know you have to plan these things out, but you don't have to talk about it in public. They should be talking up 10 of Swords before putting the cart before the horse and just assuming this is going to be a big hit. It feels like the Legion of Doofus is 101. I'm not surprised it's Jordan White trumpeting this this idea that they're just going to be talking about the next event. He is the guy that brought us Age of X-Men, one of the biggest X-Men bombs in the history of Marvel Comics. So I'm not hyped. I think it's stupid, and I think Jordan White needs to be fired. Well, maybe not to be fired. I don't want anyone to be fired, but he definitely needs to be demoted. Go put him somewhere else. Get away from X-Men.
Well, let him go get coffee for everybody that actually has some talent. But I think I agree with you in principle. I don't think that they've even sold the readership on X of Swords at this point. So thinking about expanding it and the series of specials that come after it, they may want to end up distancing themselves from this event as soon as it happens, the same way they did Age of X-Men. And I don't understand this concept of trumpeting what everyone involved is excited about. I don't really care what Jonathan Hickman, Vita Ayala, Tinny Howard, and all the rest of them are excited about. I care about what the readers are going to be excited about. And it doesn't matter to me if there's every single person in the X office that's hyped about it. If nobody that's buying it is hyped about it, it's not going to sell. And I think that's kind of a problem with most of comics at this point. They're more concerned about whether or not the people creating it are excited about it than the actual consumer. I mean, I think we see that on the reaction to New Warriors, and they're pushing ahead no matter how many downvotes that trailer gets.
Yeah, Marvel's in a weird place. I think they're definitely not paying attention to their readership and their customers, which should be the most important thing to them. But it's Jordan White. What do you expect, buddy?
I expect a ukulele, a bad mustache, and a weird spit curl that kind of looks
right, buddy.
like need a shower.
All right, Doc. Last question of the show. Agent Coulson will square off with Nick Fury in Infinite Destiny spinoff Super Spy versus Super Spy, which will be in the 8-issue miniseries. Who you got in the Marvel Secret Agent death match of the cinch, Coulson or Fury?
Well, it seems like this whole Infinite Destinies thing is basically kind of a throwback to the 80s and early 90s when they'd have summer events over their annual books. And, it keeps it out of the regular titles, which I think is good. As for who I got in this, I got the Meteor, whichever Meteor is going to hit them. You know what though? I actually kind of, as much as I dislike fake Nick Fury, I actually don't mind Agent Coulson. I think he's one of the few, original characters created for, the MCU that they brought into the 616 that's not, excuse me. That's not a complete waste of time. Sorry, had a little bit of a cough there. Swallowed some water. Well, didn't really swallow it, inhaled it. Can't breathe water. But yeah, I believe that Coulson coming in he's actually not a bad character. The little bit that I've read of him, and mind you, I haven't read a lot of the stuff with comic book Agent Coulson, but I did read the issues in Deadpool, and I did read, I think, a little bit of the first couple issues of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. book that only lasted for 8 issues, or maybe I don't even remember how long that book lasted. Not very long, but I kind of don't mind Agent Coulson, so I think I'm going to be on Coulson's side.
Well, I'm definitely, taking Nick Fury. He's a much more powerful character. I think it's a damn shame that he's not, front and center on a book right now. There isn't an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. book or he isn't, in the Avengers book or something like this. But I am confused. Where did fake Nick Fury come from? Because I'm reading, some back issues, and Nick Fury is an older white gentleman with an eye, and the next thing you know, it's Nick, or I'm sorry, it's the dude from the movies. He's in the comic book. I'm like, when did this change happen? And I do find that confusing. But Nick Fury is a great character. It just sucks that he hasn't been at the forefront. He's been misused. He's been underappreciated. So I do think he'll probably get the best of Coulson in the Super Spy versus Super Spy series. But Doc, where did fake Nick Fury come from?
Fake Nick Fury is the son of Nick Fury, whose actual name is Marcus Nicholas Johnson, and is the daughter of Nick Fury and I think that one chick whose name I always forget, that's like kind of been his on again, off again love interest. The Countess chick, and or no, not her. It was some chick that he met.
She's not black.
Yeah, no. It's some chick he met in Bosnia or something, and they had a kid that he never knew about, and whose name was Marcus Nicholas Johnson. And when real Nick Fury died, he used his middle name and took real Nick Fury's last name, so he's Nick Fury Jr. technically, but he hates being called Junior, so he just stole his dad's name. It was
uninteresting and unoriginal.
It was the amount of hoops that they had to jump through in order to make it look Samuel like the movie. In order to make it young Samuel L. Jackson is, let's just say they were very much up to that challenge. It looked like them running through one of those dog obstacle courses.
Yeah. Well, that's disappointing. Otherwise, that actually sounds more interesting than Infinite Destinies to me, the Super Spy versus Super Spy story, or the Super Spy versus Super Spy story, but it's just going to be a backup story in all 8 issues. We are going to talk about that a little bit more, or we should have done it by now, because we're recording a Comics Aficionados after this, but this is actually releasing after that. Doc, thank you so much for filling in for Skip and Tosh this week. I really appreciate you stepping up on short notice. You did great. Do you have anything to say before we sign off?
I'm just hoping I filled Skip's shoes effectively.
Well, I think you did a great job. Hopefully Skip, gives us a little bit of feedback, and it's good to know that we always got somebody in reserve ready to step up to the plate, buddy.
Hey, it's like Mike Tomlin says, the standard is the standard, next man up.
All right, Solomon Poe, we're out.